Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar, Leading to Win Through Thick and Thin. My name is Emily Lindley. I am Marketing Manager at The Grow Group, a green industry coaching and consulting firm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. For today's webinar, we are thrilled to have Doug Black, Chairman and CEO of SiteOne Landscape Supply, joining us. Marty Grunder, who heads up The Grow Group and Grunder Landscaping, will lead us in a conversation with Doug about what we can each do now, regardless of our position or title, to adapt, plan, execute, and win. Afterward, Marty and Vince Torchia, Grow Group Vice President, will stay on to answer any questions you have about how GLC is operating now, any recent developments, and what you should be thinking about at your own company. As we go through the webinar today, please send any questions you have by clicking the Q&A button in your toolbar. It should be at the bottom of your screen. I'll come back on at the end to ask your questions. We will also be sending a recording of the webinar after this ends. Now I'll pass it over to Marty.
Hey, Marty, I can't hear you.
Got me now?
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever the case may be is what I like to say. Some of you will be watching this as a recording. We have folks from all over the country on the line with us today, and we've got a wonderful treat for you today. SiteOne is the company that Grunder Landscaping Company and many of our clients in the Grow Group use for much of their procurement to provide them with plants, chemical, fertilizers, equipment, all the things that SiteOne can do for us. In the last year, I've had the wonderful opportunity of getting to know Doug Black, the CEO, a bit. And when we were looking for industry insight that we could bring to help all of us know how to deal with this coronavirus crisis that we're dealing with, Doug being a West Point grad, a Duke MBA, and just a wonderful, humble example of a leader, I wanted to turn to him and have him join us. So Doug, I'm happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Well, Marty, it's great to be here. An honor to be on with you and all the other great landscape company leaders out here in the marketplace.
Thank you. I think it's important that everyone understand your background. Me personally, I've been around CEOs of publicly traded companies, and I think you're a little bit different. I would like for everyone here today to maybe get a chance to know you a little bit better. And I believe your career started with a pig. PIG. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, you know, I grew up in Texas. My dad was in the military, and he bought a farm when I was in second grade, moved us out there. You know, he went to Vietnam, and my folks ended up splitting up. But in fifth grade, our county had an essay contest to win a show pig, only in Texas. I won that contest, won the show pig. Auctioned it off. With that, bought 5 more, and then from that built a pig business. So that was my first business. Of course, in high school, raising pigs wasn't really cool, so I liquidated the business and moved on. But that was the starting. I went on there to West Point, as you mentioned, and studied engineering there. Became an engineer officer. Went into a combat heavy engineer unit and spent 5 years building roads, bridges, airfields. Actually built a golf course. So did construction in the military. Was fortunate enough to do some deployments to Honduras, Ecuador, and other countries. Then I wanted to run a business. So I got out, went to business school at Duke for 2 years. I'm kind of slow, so I had to augment that by going into consulting. I went with McKinsey & Company for about 4 years to get into companies' problems. And then I was ready, I felt, to go run a business. I joined a company called Oldcastle, which was about $1 billion in sales at the time. I did acquisitions for a year, and then I started running companies. My first company was a precast division, which I took from kind of 60 million to 120 million. Then I took over the architectural products division, which is Belgard, hardscapes, and brick and block, and those kind of products. And did that for 6 years, went from $1 billion to $2.5 billion. And then I took over the material side, which is aggregates, asphalt, ready-mix concrete, and road paving. About a $4 billion division, took that to 7.5, and then I ended up being president COO of all of Oldcastle, which was about 40,000 associates and about 15 billion in sales. So that was my career at Oldcastle. Then I decided to jump out. Oldcastle was owned by an Irish company, and I wanted to run a US-based company. So I jumped out, looked around, and I found Site One. It was John Deere Landscapes at the time. That was about 5 years ago. Obviously, you know, the landscaping space was the space I had experience in through Oldcastle. And it seemed like an opportunity I could come on and take a company that was good and make it great. And so it came on 5 years ago. It's been a blast. And that's how I ended up here where I am.
That's a wonderful story. I want to go back in your past just for one quick story. I love sports, and I think sports builds a lot of character. And I know that you went to West Point and you wanted to play football, and some people there thought you could play football, and I guess some people didn't think you could. And when you got a shot, you thrived. Can you just tell us what happened with the football story? Because I think it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I did. You know, I went to West Point to get, first of all, we were poor, so to get a free education. 2, to become a leader. And 3, to play Division I football. I thought I could play there. There was actually nobody else that thought I could play.
Right.
I got cut right away. I made my way to finagle my way for another tryout later in my freshman year. Did a few drills. They weren't impressed, got cut again. And so I wasn't going to give up on that dream. I did other things. I played intramural football, which was full contact there, 7-on-7. I was a boxer, heavyweight boxer, lucky to be undefeated there. Worked on myself, tried out again the spring of my freshman year. Again, they had too many people, said go away. So it wasn't till the spring of my sophomore year, I played intramural football again. And one of the officers looked at me, and by this time I had gone from 190 pounds to maybe 220, gotten faster and bigger. And he said, "Why are you out here playing intramural?" And I said, "Well, you ask these guys, I can't get on the team." He got me a good tryout. I ended up making the team that spring of my sophomore year. And then my junior year, broke the single season rushing record, was All-American. Better yet, we were a winning team. We went 8-3-1 and beat Michigan State in the Cherry Bowl. And then my senior year, another 1,000 yards, and we went 9-3 and beat Illinois in the Peach Bowl. So that obviously that was a big confidence builder from rags to riches. And I think the moral there is, you know, there was a point at which only myself and my mom knew who I was, right? And you just can't lose who you are. And if you have belief and you stay persistent, you can accomplish a lot. So that was a good confidence builder coming out of West Point.
It's a fantastic story and a lesson there that we can certainly learn from today about believing in yourself and being persistent. Site One is a very complex company relative to most of the companies that are joining us today. We're all in for a lot of challenges and also opportunities that we're facing right now. I want to know how you and your team at Site One are responding to this disruption and what you're doing. Where do you start? How do you look at this as an opportunity? How do you come out on the other side of this? What are you doing?
Right. Well, it's a great question. You know, when you face a crisis, the first thing you have to do is build confidence, because a lot of people are afraid. And when associates are afraid, they don't operate well when they're afraid. So the first thing we did was build confidence. Not a false confidence, not like, you know, everything will be okay. But a confidence says, hey, we've got a very strong company. We've got a lot of talented associates, and we're going to do what it takes to get through any challenge, and we can get through this challenge. And so the first task was just to build confidence. The second task was to simplify and focus. And our top 2 values are always safe and customer obsessed. And so we really rallied around that, which is, okay, we've got 2 objectives in the short term: keep everybody safe in this coronavirus world, and then just serve our customers and support them better than anybody else. And those were useful because they were specific and everybody knew what to do and they could rally around those. I would say as it progressed, those 2 objectives went to 4. So, you know, we had to add 2 more objectives, which was, hey, we're going to have to modify our business, manage our business to a lower demand, because demand is down, right? We all know, and we have to manage our business to a lower demand. That's the 3rd objective. But the 4th one was, hey, and we're going to take care of our associates along the way. So we're not going to sacrifice associates along the way. So 2 objectives became 4. You know, our 4 objectives became everybody safe, serve our customers tremendously, manage our business to a lower demand, and take care of our associates. And once again, you know, when you hit a crisis, being clear, being very transparent, and over communicating are very essential things to do. You know, I have a rule of thumb on communicating. Think about what it's going to take to communicate something extremely clearly, and then multiply that by 10, and then do that. So, you know, we followed that rule of 10. And I think through that, we were allowed to build confidence in our team. And it just allowed our team to go back and do their jobs and to move forward and not be paralyzed in the crisis.
Fantastic. I love what you said there. Build confidence, be simple and focused, manage to a lower demand here, or however you phrase that, and then take care of the associates. So what I heard you say about communication is, and I've read this other places, I've been studying, trying to stay up on this, try to help my own company. You can't really over communicate in this environment, can you?
You can't over communicate. And I think communication needs to be real. It needs to be present. You know, if you got a small business, you need to be out there face to face with your associates and working with them, taking their questions, discussing what's going on, very clear about the situation, lots of feedback, lots of involvement. In our case, with a big company, we're having phone calls literally daily. I'm putting out videos every week or two. You know, we're doing the best we can to communicate specifically and clearly, but you can't over communicate. It's simply it's not possible.
What kind of feedback have you gotten, good and bad? What have you heard from your team?
Yeah, I think the team has been appreciative. It's supercharged our culture, if you will, because, you know, the things that we've been working on culturally in a crisis, if you've got good leaders and good teams, they tend to shine, and
right.
They get tighter. And, you know, we have a value of teamwork, for instance. You know, our folks rally around that. When we have people that need PTO, we had a great idea. We put together a PTO bank. We've had over 200 associates, you know, donate, I think about 5,000 hours of PTO to a bank, so that the folks that really need PTO to take care of their kids, if they don't have someone at home, can do that. And so that's just one example of where the culture has come to life in the crisis. So it's you know, obviously there are associates that are scared, and there's some, you know, that chose to stay home, and that was always an option. But by and large, I think the cultures rallied together.
Yeah, and that's very interesting that even in this crisis, you found a rallying cry, and you said you supercharged your culture. I think a lot of people are probably worried right now about their culture going backwards, and
right.
You found a way to do something different there. As you know, Doug, Grunder Landscaping, we're based in Ohio. The governor just extended the stay-at-home order till May the 1st. We have been deemed essential, so we've got as many people as we can out doing our maintenance, our mowing, and then we're doing some mulching on commercial sites, but by the way the order's written, we're not supposed to be doing construction or mulching homes. We're working on that. We're hoping some of that loosens up. But, you know, right now, my mindset as a CEO is, you know, number one, what do I need to do to survive? Number two, what must I absolutely pay attention to? And then three, what's my plan for getting out of this? I'm almost 52 years old. I went through 9/11. I went through the 08-09 banking thing. Yeah. And I know that you have to find balance. It can't all be about cutting things. There has to be a plan in place. What advice, experience, share what you're doing right now at Site One? How can you glean some insight on those challenges for us?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So I'd like to back up with that. I think it's good to back up and figure out what's your overall goal, right? Okay. To me, our overall goal is to get through this crisis with our company intact, right? And I know part of that's survival. Our company intact, our values intact, because we don't want to sacrifice the long term for the short term, and our core team and key people still on board, right? So I think maybe everybody on the phone would agree with me. Yeah. If we got through this crisis with our company intact, our core values intact, and our team still on board, then we're in great shape. And I think to do that requires four things, and these are very related to the four objectives we've been focused on. And in those four things are: one, keep everybody safe, make sure everybody's safe; two, serve your customers better than anybody else, like I said; three, manage down to a lower demand, which sounds easy, but obviously it's got a lot to it; And then 5, make sure the associates are taken care of kind of along the way. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to dig into those 4 because there's a lot of meat around those 4.
Oh,
And I thought it might be helpful to kind of cover
fantastic.
the specifics of those 4, because I think everybody on the call needs to do those 4 things. So let's talk about keeping everybody safe. You know, obviously we all know that the safety of our associates and our suppliers and our customers is the top priority. But now we're in a coronavirus world, right? And safety is a lot different in a coronavirus world than it is in a normal world. And, you know, I've seen all the debates on whether we're essential or not, right? And almost all the edicts out there say, you know, by the book that we're essential, but there's a lot of interpretations of whether we're essential or we're non-essential, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I think that debate misses the whole point, right? That's the wrong question. Are we essential or not? The right question is, can we perform landscaping services safely in a coronavirus world, right? I mean, because we're trying to keep the economy going and we're trying to keep this thing from spreading. So the real question is can we perform landscaping services and supply landscapers while following all the CDC recommended measures and keep coronavirus from spreading while we're performing our services? And I think the answer to that question is yes, but it's a conditional yes. It's yes only if you intentionally focus on the details of making it happen. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Yeah.
And so I think that first objective of learning to work safely in a coronavirus world is not just important for your associates and your customers, it's important for the survival of your company. Even in this time when they're talking about loosening up the economy, they're going to loosen up the folks that can go out and do this safely.
Exactly.
So it's essential. And so I think people should get away from the debate on essential business or not.
I love what you're saying.
Focus intently on implementing the CDC guidelines in detail with your company. When you do that, now you've built the confidence in yourself to operate. Now you can communicate that to the customers. You can communicate that to local authorities and say, hey, look what we're doing. Here's exactly what we're doing, and watch us do it. And with that kind of confidence, then you can push the envelope on operating, because people are going to be okay with you operating as they interpret these edicts and as they loosen up the economy. Does that make sense? So
Total sense. Yeah.
is number 1 priority. And so let me get into that a little bit. Operating in a coronavirus environment is obviously difficult. It's going to require that you rethink your operating model as a company. For example, you know, in a coronavirus world, you shouldn't be coming into Site One, shopping around our branch and picking out your products, right? You should be ordering online, calling in, emailing in your order, have it kitted for you. You pull up in your truck, we put it in your truck, and you leave. You just eliminated social distancing risk. In your own operations, you know, before you probably had your folks come to the shop and 4 or 5 folks get in a truck, right? And they go to the job site. Well, that's not social distancing. So now you're going to have to rethink that. How do folks meet at the job site so that they can stay separate? When you're on the job site, how do you keep 6-foot distance? How do you wash your hands constantly? Do you have enough cleaning supplies? So there's quite a bit of detail in implementing this. And guess what? The homeowner looking out their window at you knows if you're implementing that or not.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's so scary. I mean, if they look out, they're really you are really a captive audience for them now, because most of them are home.
Exactly. So my advice is work on the details. I know at Site One, we had to innovate very rapidly to change our whole model. We involved our associates in doing it, and then we shared best practices across as they figured things out. We didn't have it all figured out, and very rapidly we figured out how to operate safely. And so when people challenged me on, are you essential? Should you be open? My answer to that was, hey, we're safer at work than we are at home. So of course we should be open and operating. So I think that number 1 objective is so important, which is keep everybody safe, including your own associates, your customers, and your suppliers in a coronavirus world. If you can do that, that sets you up for success. If you can't do that, it's kind of game over.
And really, Doug, what you're saying there, it's no different than having a vision for a company. For example, if you know, you should be taking the temperatures of your people if you don't have a thermometer, go get one, go borrow one, go do whatever you do. You gotta, I like this. I like to hire people. If I hear you played football and you were a defensive end, I love that, because what's a defensive end's job? To get to the quarterback at all costs, do whatever you got to do. We need to be working with resourceful people right now, and you got to find a way to be safe no matter what. I love it.
So that number one, by the way, I was a fullback, so I didn't like defensive ends, but
I know, I hear you.
So
I like fullbacks too.
Yeah. So number one objective is perfect being safe in a coronavirus world, and that'll earn you right back to operating and get us back in business. By the way, it's important for our communities. It's important for our country, and you'll see us at SiteOne taking that very seriously. And you'll also see on our website lots of tips on how to do that.
Got it.
Second objective is to serve your customers well, right? And I imagine everybody on this phone knows how to serve their customer, but in a coronavirus world, that means communicating, right? Communicating to the customer exactly what you're doing to have safety in this world, all the additional measures that you're taking, how you're going to keep them safe as you keep your own associates safe. Over communicating to your customers right now adds tremendous value. Homeowners are scared. Your own associates are scared. So as you communicate to them exactly what you're doing, as you execute what you're doing, you're creating enormous value with your customers. So I think this is a unique time to focus on customer service, but more beyond customer service, focus on customer communication so that the customers know exactly what you're doing and they know why you showing up on their job site, in their yard, or on their commercial property is not going to harm them. So keeping everybody safe, serving your customers well, especially through communication. The third is pretty obvious, which is business survival, right? You got to make it through. And I know a lot of folks on the phone have been cut back in terms of the work they've been able to do. They might be completely shut down, don't know all the situations. But in that case, obviously cash is king, right? As long as you have some cash, you can be in business. If you run out of cash, you're out of business. So, cash flow or management of cash flow today is tremendously important, and around those are what's your revenue level and what's the new revenue level that you're faced with. What kind of expenses does that support? How do you cut back expenses, especially non-employee expenses, to the bone? How do you cut back capital expenditures? How do you collect your money faster, that's owed to you? I hate to admit this as a supplier, but how do you pay suppliers a little slower? And, in SiteOne, we'll work with you, right? So we know that cash flow is king in this couple of months till we get to the other side of this. There's also ways that the government will help you out. Marty, I think you tapped into that payroll protection program where you can get this business loan. It can pay up to 2 months of your payroll and rent, and it's 100% forgivable. Boy, take that and put it in the bank and get some additional cash. So, lean on your partners, banking partners, or in this case, through the CARES Act, the federal government, to get alternative sources of cash so that you can survive. So I think just a very intent focus on cash management is absolutely critical. And again, we understand that might also include some downsizing of your team. So that's the third objective. Pay attention to cash and conserve cash. And even if you have cash, remember that going into a recession or a down period, you tend to get cash inflows, because the customers pay up their bills, assuming they're paying you. But coming out of a recession, eats cash, right? Because you're taking new business, you're hiring new employees, but you don't have the money coming in yet. So make sure, don't get too confident. You can't have too much cash through this crisis or coming out the other side of the crisis. So that's third objective. The fourth objective, I think, is very, very key as well, which is take care of your associates along the way, and especially your core team and those key associates you have. And so how do you do that? Well, first of all, you involve them, get them together, tell them what the situation is, and help them to help you to work through it. This is not something as a leader you should work through alone. You should have your team around you solving those problems with you to figure out what to do. If you do have to let associates go, keep in mind what the government will do for you. The CARES Act offers an additional $600 a week to supplement unemployment. So you can, and what we're doing here at SiteOne is we're putting people on furlough, which is different from a layoff. A furlough allows you to keep them on the roster. They're still an employee. We're still paying their benefits, so that is an expense. But they go on unemployment. They receive that. They receive the $600K or $600 a week through the CARES Act. They're kept whole for not working, and then we go through this period, and we can hire them back at any time when demand picks back up. So there's different ways to manage downsizing your team. Some of them are terrific through the CARES Act, so that you can do that final, take care of your associates, even though you have to downsize. So I know that was long-winded, but I think those 4 objectives, keep everybody safe in a coronavirus world, serve the heck out of your customers, but communicate well to your customers, manage your cash as tightly as you humanly possibly can, but take care of your associates along the way will allow you to get through, but be strong on the other side to where you can resume business and pick right back up.
So I want to make sure we have plenty of time for our viewers and our listeners to ask questions, but I have a couple more things for you since we have you. I know SiteOne prides itself on being customer obsessed. And those of us in the landscaping business know that if our customers are happy, we've got a real opportunity to improve our business, to thrive with our business, to do. How do you find ways to deliver value with the customer now? How do you create a workplace culture right now that's customer obsessed when we may have an employee whose spouse works at a hospital, or we may have an employee whose grandfather has, God forbid, the coronavirus? How do you, balance being demanding of them and creating this service mentality with all those other things they're dealing with? What do you do?
Well, first of all, I would say, customer obsession for us is part of our DNA, right?
Right.
And if you remember, one of the first things we did was set 2 objectives: everybody safe and serve the heck out of our customers. So I think it comes naturally if you wrap that into your culture. Let me make just a few comments on that, by the way, too. One of the other things that I think everybody on this call needs to do is lean into their partners. Use their partners to help them get through this. And certainly SiteOne is one of your partners. I mean, if you're doing business with us, or even if you're not doing business with us, we've got resources, we've got talented associates, we've got ideas, we've got solutions. And not just using us, use your bankers, use your peer companies, use your mentors. Don't go this alone. Lean into your partners. And SiteOne, should be one of those partners that everybody on the call leans into, so that we can help you get through. And so back to the customer obsession and the culture aspect, we've built customer obsession into our culture. One of our top 5 objectives is to deliver the best value in the industry to our customers. And then when we look at our behaviors, just below always safe is being customers obsessed.
Right.
And we define customer obsessed as being obsessed with our customer success, not being obsessed with good customer service or with whatever. We're obsessed with our customer success. So when our customers succeed, that's when we've done our job. And so I think building off of that in this coronavirus world, let's think through that, right? Right now, if you're a contractor, I just talked about, your customers are scared. If you get residential customers, they're scared. So what do they need? It's back to community. You can add tremendous value by just communicating well. Communicating all the things that you're doing to keep them safe, to keep you safe. If you have commercial partners that are in construction or golf course superintendents that are running the golf course, you're a strong partner to them to help them get done what they need to get done. Lean into that partnership and that customer obsession. Talk about it as a team. This is a period when I talked about supercharging the culture. This is when everybody goes on high alert. Of course, we're being safe and we have to keep our distance, and it might be hard because we can't come visit and we're on the phone. But it doesn't mean that we can't be there for our customers in this time of need. And so I think here at SiteOne, because we've talked about it so much, we built it into how we define ourselves. We've also structured it, into how we work. We have a saying called customers first, and customers first is a structure. It's FIRST: friendly, inquire, respect, solve, and thank. Right. So we've made it very simple. Everybody can do that. Everybody can be friendly. They can inquire, what do you want? How can I help? They can respect your time. They can solve your problem, and they can thank. So here we are, coronavirus. It's customers first on steroids. We're not doing anything different.
Right.
We're doing it better, stronger, more intensely, because it's a heightened period right now. So I think if you have the foundation, you just that foundation. But put your self in the customer's shoes and make sure that you're leaning into them and helping them. On the flip side of this, I would hope all the customers on the line here know that they can lean into us. That's what we want. That's what we're here for, especially in these times.
Right. Awesome. I have one more question for you, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Are there any lessons that you and your team are learning from this that you think are going to make SiteOne better going forward?
Yeah, there's quite a few, and of course we're not through it all the way. So I'm sure.
Right.
But part of it is, when you hit a crisis, it's a great pressure test for leaders and teams, right? And I think I said this before. Good leaders shine in times like this. Good teams shine in times like this. Unfortunately, mediocre leaders tend to panic and fall apart, and mediocre teams tend to point fingers and go the other way. And so going through a crisis like this, we're seeing what our teams can do, and it's quite the test. And I'm proud to say, a lot of our teams are on the former side of that and just really thriving. This is a terrible situation. There's plenty of challenge, but you're seeing them step up. You're seeing those teams step up. So we're learning the real DNA. The other thing that you learn, by the way, the employees learn is the company really deeply in belief of their own values and culture. And I would say that, we're learning the power of culture right now. We've been working for 5 years on the culture here at SiteOne. And I mentioned the PTO bank. There's just some things that are going on that are just tremendous. And it's not me, it's not our leader, it's the culture at work. So I think we're learning about the power of that. When you have that solid, fundamentally solid culture, it comes to life in these kind of crises. We're also learning creative ways to communicate. I didn't even know Zoom existed about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
It's been quite the challenge to communicate remotely, to work remotely. But there's some really neat tools that, when this is all passed, we're going to use. Having remote meetings and remote happy hours, and we're doing things online that obviously they're best done in person. But when you're spread out, these kind of tools are quite valuable. So we're learning some creative new skills as we go here. Those are just a few things that we've learned.
Oh, that's terrific. Hey, it's been great having this discussion. Emily, I think we're going to open it up for questions now. And we've got Vince Torchia, the Vice President of the Grow Group. Him and I and Doug help anybody listening today. Vince and myself can share what we're doing with our clients and what we see. And obviously you can tell by Doug's comments here, we got a heck of a leader with us and we're ready to help. Emily, what do you have?
Sure. Our first question is for Doug, specific to your PTO sharing program. How do you make sure that that PTO from that bank is given out fairly to team members? Is there something in there that keeps team members from abusing that?
Right. No, that's a great question. That bank is managed by our HR professionals. And anybody that's applying for that, has to meet some fairly straightforward criteria in order to use that bank. So it actually, and I recommend that. Something like that, if you're going to have folks donating their precious PTO into a bank, then you need to have a gatekeeper that makes sure that associates that use that PTO are deserving of that award. And primarily we're focused on, because we're paying associates to be home sick. I mean, we're telling associates, if you're sick, stay home, we're going to pay you. We're paying associates that are super high risk, maybe older, or have conditions that make coronavirus dangerous, we're paying them to be home. Don't worry about it. The folks that are struggling with PTO are folks that have children at home. You know, everybody's kids are at home and they're usually at school. And what do I do about that? And I don't have a spouse that can cover, et cetera. They're having to take PTO to cover those situations. And that's the primary audience that we're using this bank to help out. And it's been unbelievable. It's been a great tool. And by the way, we're going to have leftover. So we're going to use this for future crises.
That's amazing. What an amazing story for everyone to feel good about. Great question. Emily, what else?
Okay, our next one is from Mark. What are a couple things that each of you are doing to instill confidence in your team each day?
Well, I can start with that. I think confidence comes from knowing what you're doing. And in this time, it's the sharing of information. We haven't sugarcoated anything. We've told our people exactly what we know. I've been putting out videos, giving updates. And while hope is not a strategy, you have to give your people hope. I would be lying to you if I told you that I'm not concerned by some of this, but I'll tell you what, I'm pretty confident about the team I have and the way that we're going about it with Seth and Dalton and Amber, that we're going to win this thing. Whatever's there, we're going to win. So instilling confidence in them is not giving them a reason to doubt anything that you've told them. Be honest with them, be there to support. And I think one of the best things a leader can do right now is to listen. You know, what might be a concern for me may not be a concern. One of my nice young guys, Tyler, I don't know what's a concern to him. So my organization is small enough that I can have a socially distant in-person conversation. Doug's doing that through talking with his managers and others as well. But I think instilling confidence boils down to the sharing of information and not hiding, running towards this situation and confidently telling them what we're going to do and giving them the tools to do it. That's my take. Doug, what would you say on that?
Yeah, very much the same. I mentioned some of this before, being totally transparent. Here's the situation, reminding them how strong you are as a company, how strong you are as a team, taking action, telling them what you're doing as a company, and then telling them exactly what you want them to do. And then I think being present, when they see the leader present, and of course, I've gotten around to branches around here locally, and you're modeling those safe behaviors that you're requiring from them. So you're staying 6 foot away, you're washing your hands.
Well said.
With you're modeling the behaviors that they want to see. Then all of a sudden they say, hey, these are real. And our leadership really does care about us. And look, if you're being paid and you still have your job and your leaders care about you and they want you to be safe and they're giving you the tools to do that and be successful, that builds a tremendous amount of confidence. And if they're keeping you informed, Marty, like you said, there's just a massive amount of communication going on here, and even that's not enough. But just keeping people informed of where you stand, what's going on, and being present and being confident yourself and modeling what you want them to do, that all builds confidence.
I think when you over communicate, you can, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but you can certainly mitigate any feelings that somebody doesn't, they don't know what's going on and they backfill with their own innuendo.
Right.
And so being present and communicating often, like Doug said, I think there's tremendous benefit from that. Emily, you have another question?
I sure do. This one's from TJ. How do you deal with associates who are having a tough time at home, and how do you support them through this?
Doug?
Yes, well, it's just like you work with everyone, in their particular situations. And, obviously we have the gamut of associates at Site One. If as I mentioned, if they're having difficulty with childcare and they've got to be home, we set up the PTO bank for them. If they're having difficulty because they're living with their 80-year-old grandfather and they're very afraid that they're going to get them sick, we're going to work with that associate, probably pay that associate to stay home, see if they can do something at home for us,
Right.
project, or they can get something done, because that's a unique situation. We've had some associates that just said, hey, I'm just frightened to come to work. My wife's frightened to come to work. All right, well, we'll let you take PTO and stay at home. Maybe you'll see after a while that that we're going to keep you safe and you can come back. So I think you just have to, like Marty says, listen to them, understand what their real needs are, and then to the best of your ability, meet those needs specifically and quickly. And 99% of the time, there's always that small percent, but 99% of the time, you can get to a situation where they're more comfortable and everybody's moving forward.
I don't think I can add anything. I think I don't have anything to add to that. Doug surrounded that issue. Being an empathetic leader will hardly ever serve you wrong.
Right.
Next question,
Okay.
Emily.
Our next question is from Carrie. How should I deal with clients who don't understand that I'm canceling some services, including indoor plants, for the safety of my employees and for the client?
Wow. So the client is upset that they're not doing the indoor plant service?
Sounds like it, yep.
Wow. I don't know. That reminds me years ago of Herb Kelleher had somebody complaining about the Southwest Airlines flight, and he said, "We're going to miss you." I don't know. I don't know how anybody could be upset by that. I'm kind of stumped by that one. Doug?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get into specifics there, but the only thing I would say is in those situations, try to explore creative solutions if you can first. Maybe there's a way to do that and still have everybody be safe. But if there's no way to do that, I mean, it's a simple explanation. Hey, during this time period, we're all absolutely 100% committed to keeping everybody safe, including you. And this is a bad idea at this point, and pick it up in the future. Some clients in all businesses won't be happy with whatever you do. And so, for that small percentage, you probably will just have to agree to disagree. But I would first try to find a solution that actually.
I agree with the creative solution. Maybe they can put the plants outside and you can
Absolutely.
do what, maybe there's a way. I will share, Emily, and Doug, you might find this interesting too. So we have about 200 tickets. We run Aspire, an industry-specific software, and we had about 200 tickets that we have to move as a result of all this. So the 200 tickets are 168 clients of ours, and I've been personally calling each one of them to check in. It's been motivating because other than one call, I've done 113 calls now. 112 of them went great. One did not go well. And that individual that was upset with us called back the other day to say, sorry, they were upset with us and they'd really like for us to come serve their property. So I think having a dialogue with the customer and letting them see and hear you, Doug's comment about creative solutions for sure. Talk to your customers and have them hear your voice and see what you're doing and let them know that you're a real human being, but safety certainly has to come first in this.
Right.
Another question?
Okay. Our next question, we have a couple people, both Chris and Mark, are asking about marketing right now and how you can do marketing without customers feeling like you aren't concerned about them or the current situation.
Doug, do you want to share insights and I can fill in with what I think?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We have turned the turret on marketing toward helping our customers, right? So we things that we're doing now aren't out there to ask the order. They're not out there trying to create demand. We're out there as aggressively as we can to provide information, to provide solutions, to check on people, to see how things are going. And our marketing department is working hard, creating content both internally and externally to communicate what we're doing, to communicate any tips or best practices, to communicate, there's all kinds of information around essential business. There's all kinds of information around the CARES Act. We're trying our best to be helpful to our customers and using our marketing to do that. And it's the same with our sellers. Right now it's about helping our customers be successful. And that's what we're out doing, checking on them. Any problems that we can help them with, we want to be 100% focused on that and not in traditional marketing and sales.
I love that. I'll add what we're doing. I'm texting people that I've never texted before, checking in with them. We have a very good customer. Him and his wife both have the COVID-19, the coronavirus. They're doing okay. They're at home. I've been checking in on him every other day to see how he's doing. He's doing fine. We have a marketing piece that we're going to mail to our existing client base, no prospects. And it's in an envelope because we decided we wanted to do that. And it's a card that has a nice picture of a spring job on it. And when you open it up, it says, "Dear client, thank you for your support during these trying times. We're here for you to help you in any way, shape, or form that we can. Whatever you need, let us know. If there's something in your yard that you see since you've been home that's bugging you, give us a call, a text, or an email, and we'll see what we can do. We're here to help you. Thank you for your support." It's something of that nature. I can send the verbiage out, Emily, with the follow-up, but I think it's the same thing that Doug's saying. We just want to be there to help. We want to show that we're human beings and that we care about our people and that we care about them. And something that Doug did not say this directly, but it's something that I subscribe to. And in his words, you could see what he's saying here. Your external customer service, the service that you deliver to your people, will never exceed your internal customer service. So at the Grow Group, we teach you to identify who your ideal client is and then identify who the ideal team member is to serve that client. So if you were employed by your own company, what would you expect? What would really impress you right now? What would make you feel loved? And if you were a client of your company, what would impress you and what would make you feel loved? And I think those are the same things that Doug was saying. And I think if you do that, I just don't see how being present for them beyond the standard COVID-19 emails that we're getting, a video, a note, a call, a text, a ding-dong ditch of some hand sanitizer if you found any.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of ways we can stand out and see a sameness right now.
Yeah. Marty, you mentioned an interesting thing. We also, obviously we have a larger company. We have a field support team that supports our field, and they are highly intent on customers first and customer obsession with our own field, right? And one great thing about that is it models what we want them to do with our end customer.
Amen.
Even internally, as you have internal support people that are working with your own field associates to take care of them, you know, the fact that they're taking care of them and asking them any issues that they have and going over backwards helps build that culture for what you want them doing with the clients that your external customer. So.
Absolutely. Great discussion. Emily, we have time for a few more questions.
Yeah, why don't we do two more? So this one is from Michael. And Marty, I think you're going to have a good answer to this. Are there any SiteOne or Grow Group employees who are in the National Guard or the Reserves who have been activated for duty to support the COVID-19 efforts? If so, how are you supporting them while they are away from home and their families?
Yeah, so you broke a little bit up on the question, so I'm just going to, I think I caught it. Do we have anyone at the Grow Group or does SiteOne or Grunder Landscaping have anyone that's been activated in the National Guard? Is that what you asked?
Yes, that's it. And how are you supporting them?
Okay, so yeah, a member of my leadership, Dalton, who is just a tremendous young leader, is an active member of the Ohio National Guard. He has not been activated yet. There's a high probability that he is. And while we're going to miss him and it's going to put more strain on our organization to not have him there, I am so proud to have this young man on our team. And I will tell you what, the leadership that he has learned from being in the United States Army and now in the National Guard, I'll take not having him there for a month, because when he comes back, he makes a tremendous impact. It hurts, but you know, one thing I've learned in my almost 52 years of living, and I learned a lot of it from my mom and then other mentors, when you do the right things happen. And when Dalton has got activated in the past for various other national disasters, our team has rallied together. And I think in a weird way, I think it was good for us. So that's my short but succinct answer. That's a tough one, but the right thing to do is to support them and be happy and proud that you have a person that wants to do that kind of work. Doug?
Right. Yeah, and I don't know the specific answer to that, but we have actually an associate resource group we call Vets One. It's one of three that we have. We have Women in Green Growing. We have Unidos, which is a Hispanic associate resource group. And then we have Vets One, which is all of those resource groups are designed to make sure that that we attract, in this case, veterans to Site One, and that veterans at Site One have a club, if you will, to share best practices, et cetera. So when we have folks that are called for duty, we support that 100%. We're a bigger company, so that's a little easier for us.
Right.
Financially, we make sure that they're kept whole. That's something that we have an honor to be a part of. Obviously, I was a veteran. We have quite a few veterans in the company, and we support that as top priority when it does happen.
Yeah, fantastic. Emily?
Yes. Okay, this will be our last question. I know we have some questions we did not have time to get to, but we will do our best to find the answers for everyone. They will be updated on our website when we do have them. So this last question, it's from Brian and Natasha. They were asking similar things. Brian asked, Marty, that you mentioned you are mulching commercial properties but not residential. Where do you draw that distinction? And then Natasha was asking what you've done to keep your crews separated when they are out doing maintenance.
Okay, so we have a strict coronavirus protocol that we'll send you. We go over the entire protocol every morning in a socially distant meeting at the shop outside. We actually have pylons that are 7 feet apart where we station at. I mean, we're talking, this is a very rigid protocol that we're going through. And every team member that's clocked in that day is required to go through the briefing and then sign it. So there's that part. I'll address the socially distant part first. And then we do have 2 folks in a truck right now. We're okay to do that, but the windows have to be down and they have a face mask on. We've got hand sanitizers and wipes, and it's just constant. Bob Grover, our friend at Pacific Landscape Management up in the Pacific Northwest, he did a really cute, funny video of swinging a rake at each other. And if you can hit somebody with a rake, you're too close. So we've been trying to even inject humor into that. As far as the distinction between a residential and a commercial property, I think maybe what they're talking about, sometimes people perceive HOAs to be commercial, and I can relate to that. In Dayton, Ohio, there has been a tremendous amount of social pressure. The health department's very active. They're actually writing citations. And the last thing I want to do for 2 weeks or a month is ruin the reputation that I've worked on for 36 years because we didn't follow the law. It seems like as every day passes, people are getting more accustomed to what makes sense and what doesn't. And we're just doing the best that we can with it. So, you have to react in the short term, and you got to have a plan for that. But you also got to think, what would success look like for this whole thing a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Because you're being watched, not just by your customers, but by the neighbors of your customers, by the community that you live and work in. And you want to be thinking about where you're going to be next year. Have a belief and faith and confidence that you can get through this. I know you can. It's your mindset that's there, and you just got to try to put your best foot forward. Doug, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't add anything specific, Marty, but I would just say involve your team. I bet your team can figure everything out. When you get a group of associates together, we didn't figure out most of, or I didn't, or I don't think I've ever had an original thought in my whole career. Personally,
I certainly haven't.
Very good at stealing other ideas, but we get associates together and figure things out together. That builds confidence, and you get to a better answer. So I think anything that you're up against, get your folks together and brainstorm it. And I bet you'll come up with very creative solutions. And then as different crews figure things out, share that aggressively, right? So I just involve your people. I think you'll come up with great solutions.
Emily, I think that'll do it for today. I'll tie a bow on it, okay?
Perfect.
So I want to go over the 4 key. There was a lot that Doug shared with us. Doug, thank you very much for your time, your kindness, your empathy, your enthusiasm, and for what you do for the green industry. You truly are a leader. There were 4 big takeaways I got from Doug that I think you can use in your business. Doug just told us that it's, he said he robs and duplicates. We all do. Some fashion of this may work for you as well. Build confidence in your organization and through your team. Simplify and focus everything that you're doing. Don't overcomplicate it, all right? But get it into focus in what we're doing. Take care of that customer. Be obsessed with safety and the customer. manage to a lesser demand, understand and adjust. He talked about cash flow and how important that is. You know, running out of cash is a bad thing. We got to be careful with that. And then lastly, he talked about taking care of your associates. And I would add on just the mindset that if you want your people to treat your customers like kings and queens, you have to treat them like kings and queens. You got to be present for them. You got to listen. None of this is going to be easy on us. There's more to come. How you approach it on a daily basis will determine whether or not you, and I know you can do this. Guys like Doug, myself, the countless other landscaping companies are listening here. Make sure you're talking with other people. I understand after working all day with your team, vendors and other partners, you know, maybe you just need a buddy to have a Zoom call with, or a FaceTime, or a shout across driveways, an alcoholic beverage, an iced tea, whatever it is. Don't lose track of your mental health as well as we go through this. The Grow Group is here for you. You just heard that Site One, with their hundreds of locations across the country, is there. Doug asked you to lean into them. I'd take them up on that offer. Doug, on behalf of the several hundred landscape pros you helped today, thank you. You're a gem.
Yeah, Marty, it's such a pleasure for me to be on the line with this group of leaders. I'd just like to thank all of them. Thank you for allowing us to be your partner. Thank all the Site One associates for helping us get where we are today. You know, it's a true honor. This is a great industry. It's a great industry of camaraderie. And let's just get through this. We'll be stronger together. Let's get through it together. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.